The rain fell hard against the dojo windows that night. Most students had gone home hours ago, but I remained, striking the wooden dummy with increasing intensity. Each blow echoed through the empty hall, not just the sound of flesh against wood, but the thunderclap of a man at war with himself. You see, earlier that day, I had refused to teach a student. He had money, he had time, but something in his eyes told me he wasn't there to learn. He wanted to take, to collect techniques like trophies. I saw myself in him, the younger me who hoarded knowledge, who believed power came from what you possessed. As lightning flashed outside, illuminating my reflection in the mirror, I realized a profound truth that would change not just my martial arts, but my entire philosophy of living. The more you give, you receive. This paradox has shaped everything I've done since that stormy night. But I warn you, what I'm about to share isn't just another motivational speech. I was protecting my rice bowl, as we say in China, but my rice bowl was nearly empty. Everything changed when I met an old master visiting from Hong Kong. After watching me teach a private lesson, he pulled me aside and said something I'll never forget, young man. You have filled your cup so full that nothing more can be added. Empty your cup. That night, I couldn't sleep. The words haunted me. Was I really so full of my own knowledge that I couldn't receive more? Was my tight grip on what I knew actually preventing me from growing further? The next day, I did something that terrified me. I hosted an open seminar, sharing concepts I had previously kept secret. I demonstrated techniques I had reserved only for advanced students. I gave freely, without concern for what I might lose. Something miraculous happened. The more I shared, the more insights came to me. As I taught, new connections formed in my mind. As I gave examples, better methods emerged. By emptying my cup, by giving, it was suddenly being refilled with something far more valuable. This is the fundamental principle so many fail to grasp in their pursuit of mastery. They approach life like a transaction, always calculating what they'll get in return before they give anything of themselves. Train with half effort, they love with conditions. They work with one eye on the clock, and then they wonder why their progress stalls, why their relationships wither, why their work feels meaningless. They're trying to receive without first giving. They want the harvest without planting the seeds. Listen carefully now, because this truth applies to every area of your life. In your training, holding back, preserving your energy, protecting yourself from discomfort. Guarantees mediocrity. The student who gives everything in practice, who pushes beyond the point where others quit, who isn't afraid to fail spectacularly. That's the student who progresses at 10 times the rate of others. Why? These aren't words to make you feel temporarily inspired before returning to your old patterns. No. What I'm offering is a complete reframing of how you approach everything. Your training, your relationships, your career, your very purpose for being. And once you truly understand this principle, you can never go back to your old way of seeing the world. The question is, are you ready to receive this truth? Can you handle what happens when you finally open your hands and stop clutching so tightly to what you think is yours? I remember when I first came to America, I had nothing but a few dollars and my martial arts training. I thought my knowledge was something to protect, to guard carefully, to reveal only to those who proved worthy. This mindset, this scarcity thinking, it was like fighting with a clenched fist, tight, restricted, limited in its expression. For months I struggled, teaching only a handful of students, suspicious of anyone asking too many questions about my methods. Because in giving your full effort, you create space to receive new abilities. Your body adapts precisely to the demands you place upon it. No more, no less. I once had a student who trained 3 hours a day, every day. He would arrive before everyone else and leave after I did. One day I asked him, "Why do you train so hard when others have gone home?" His answer revealed everything, because Master, when I give everything to my training gives everything back to me. 6 months later, he defeated opponents who had been practicing for years. They couldn't understand how someone with less experience could surpass them so quickly. But you understand now, don't you? He wasn't just practicing movements, he was embodying the principle of giving to receive. In your relationships, this principle becomes even more powerful. So many people approach relationships asking, What can this person do for me? How do they make me feel? What do I get from this connection? I keep a mental ledger, always ensuring they never give more than they receive. And yet these same people wonder why their relationships feel shallow, transactional, ultimately unsatisfying. True connection, the kind that nourishes your soul, comes only when you're willing to give without guarantee of return. Remember my first marriage? Few do, because it failed after just months. I was young, ambitious, focused entirely on what Linda could do for me, how she could support my goals, fit into my life. The relationship was doomed because I approached it as a transaction. My second marriage to Linda, yes, another Linda, has thrived for years. The difference? I stopped asking what she could add to my life and started asking what I could pour into hers. And in that giving, that complete, unconditional giving, I've received love beyond anything I could have demanded or negotiated. Consider also your career, your calling. The most successful people I've encountered aren't those obsessed with getting credit, securing compensation, or climbing over others. The truly successful give themselves completely to their work, not for recognition, not for reward, but for the sheer joy of contribution. They ask, how can I add value, not what can I gain? They approach each task, no matter how small, with their full presence. And somehow, mysteriously, opportunities flow to them. Resources appear when needed. The right connections form at the perfect moment. When I created my first school in America, I was still learning this lesson. I charged high prices, restricted knowledge, created artificial scarcity. The school barely survived. My second school, I operated differently. I made it accessible. I taught openly. I measured success not by what I received, but by what my students absorbed. That school thrived, producing students who went on to become masters themselves. By giving more, I received not just financial success, but the profound satisfaction of seeing my knowledge multiply through others. But be warned, this principle comes with a test, a moment of truth that will reveal whether you truly understand or merely intellectually agree. Because there will come a point where giving seems to yield nothing in return. You'll train for months with no visible progress. You'll pour yourself into a relationship that ends despite your best efforts. You'll work with complete dedication on a project that fails. In these moments, the transactional mind panics. It says, see, giving doesn't work. Protect what you have. Withdraw. Hold back. This is the critical juncture where most people abandon the principle. They retreat into scarcity thinking, into protective postures, into half-hearted living. But those who truly understand know that giving isn't about immediate return. It's about creating capacity to receive. Sometimes the universe must empty your cup completely before it can be filled with something better. That failed relationship creates space for a deeper connection. Plateau in training prepares you for a breakthrough. That professional setback redirects you toward your true purpose. Let me share a story few have heard. After my first film gained some success, I was offered a role that would have made me famous overnight. The money was more than I'd ever seen, but something felt wrong. The character perpetuated stereotypes. The story had no substance. Everyone told me to take it. My agent, my friends, even my father. Take what you can get, they said. With great fear, I declined. For 2 years afterward, no comparable offers came. I questioned my decision constantly. Had I been foolish to turn down such an opportunity? Then came the offer for the Green Hornet, a role that allowed me to bring dignity and depth to a character, that launched my career in a direction aligned with my values. By giving up what wasn't right, by creating space, I received something far better. I'm going to teach you 3 specific practices to embody this principle in your daily life. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical tools that transformed me from a struggling martial artist with a handful of students to someone whose philosophy continues to impact millions around the world decades after my physical form is gone. Use these practices not as rigid techniques, but as gateways to a new way of being. The first practice is what I call empty-handed training. Each day, identify one thing you're holding too tightly: a belief, a grudge, a possession, a desired outcome. Consciously open your hand. Release your grip on it completely. Maybe it's your insistence that your way is the right way. Maybe it's resentment towards someone who wronged you. Maybe it's your attachment to how a situation must unfold. Whatever it is, release it fully, creating space to receive something new. At first, this will feel terrifying, like stepping off a cliff, but soon you'll discover an exhilarating freedom in this practice. I remember the day I released my attachment to Wing Chun as the best martial art. For years I had defended it, argued its superiority, closed myself to other approaches. The moment I opened my hand, acknowledging its limitations, appreciating other styles, my own art evolved beyond what I thought possible. Jeet Kune Do could never have been born if I hadn't first practiced empty-handed training with my cherished beliefs about martial arts. The second practice is full cup living. Each morning ask yourself, where am I holding back today? Where am I giving less than I could? Then commit to one area where you'll give completely, without reservation. Perhaps in your workout, you'll push beyond your usual limits. Perhaps in a conversation, you'll listen with your complete attention, rather than waiting for your turn to speak. Perhaps in your work, you'll bring your full creativity to a task you usually perform mechanically. This isn't about burning yourself out by giving everywhere. It's about experiencing the power of wholehearted giving in specific chosen moments. When I prepare for a film scene, I don't give 90% on rehearsals and save my real performance for when cameras roll. I give completely each time, discovering new dimensions, new possibilities with each full expression. By the time we film, my performance has depths that could never have been reached through calculated partial giving. Your life deserves this same approach, not saving yourself for some future moment, but experiencing the power of giving fully now. The third practice is circular gratitude. Each evening, reflect on what you've received during the day. Not just material things, but moments of beauty, insights, connections, even challenges that strengthened you. Acknowledge these gifts fully. Then ask yourself, how can I circulate this abundance? How can what I've received flow through me to others? This completes the cycle of giving and receiving, preventing stagnation and ensuring continuous flow. Perhaps what you received was patience from others during a difficult day. Tomorrow, you can circulate that gift by extending unusual patience to someone struggling. I practice this each night, recognizing that my abilities, my insights, my very opportunities exist not to be hoarded, to be circulated. Even this teaching I'm sharing with you now isn't mine. It flows through me from countless masters, experiences, and insights I've received. My only merit is in refusing to dam the stream, in letting what I've received flow onward to you. Now, these three practices, empty-handed training, full cup living, and circular gratitude, they form a complete system for transforming how you engage with life. But here's what most people miss. These aren't techniques you apply occasionally when you remember or when it's convenient. They form a way of being that eventually becomes effortless. Your natural state, just as water doesn't try to flow, it simply follows its nature. You too will give naturally when these practices become integrated into who you are. But I must warn you about the obstacles you'll face as you implement these practices. The first and greatest obstacle is fear. Fear that if you give too much, you'll be left with nothing. This fear runs deep in human consciousness. It whispers that resources are scarce, that you must protect what's yours, that giving without guarantee of return is foolish. When this fear arises, and it will, remember that nature itself refutes scarcity thinking. The fruit tree doesn't fear producing fruit. The sun doesn't conserve its rays. The spring doesn't hoard its water. The most abundant systems in nature are those that give most freely. The second obstacle is the transactional mindset so deeply ingrained in modern society. Everything around you reinforces the idea that giving should be calculated, measured, only done with clear expectation of return. Breaking free from this mindset requires conscious effort, a willingness to be seen as impractical or naive by those still operating from transactional thinking. When I first began teaching all students regardless of their ability to pay, many business-minded friends told me I would fail. They couldn't understand that what I received in return, the joy of spreading knowledge, the evolutionary pressure of diverse students, the community that formed around this approach, was worth far more than the money I might have made through exclusivity. The third obstacle is impatience. The principle of giving to receive doesn't always work on your preferred timeline. Sometimes you give and give without visible return. And it's in these desert periods that most people abandon the principle. They say, I tried giving more in my relationship, but nothing changed. Or I poured myself into this project, but it still failed. What they miss is that the returns often come in unexpected forms, at unexpected times, in unexpected ways. The giving is never wasted. It's building capacity, creating potential energy that will eventually manifest, though perhaps not as you imagined. Remember my years of struggle in Hong Kong cinema? I gave everything to roles that barely paid the bills, to productions that few people saw. I could have become discouraged, thinking my efforts were yielding inadequate returns. But those seemingly unrewarded years were building my skills, my presence, my understanding of the craft. When the opportunity finally came to bring martial arts to Western audiences, I was prepared precisely because of those years of giving without obvious return. Now we come to the most important question. What happens when you fully embrace this principle? What transformation awaits when you shift from asking, what can I get, to what can I give? First, experience a profound liberation. The constant calculation, the weighing of effort against reward, the protection of what's yours, all this creates an exhausting mental burden you've carried so long you've forgotten it's there. When you release it, the energy that floods into your life is extraordinary. Second, you develop a natural magnetism. People are instinctively drawn to those who give genuinely. They can sense the difference between someone operating from abundance versus someone functioning from scarcity. Your relationships deepen. Your network expands organically. Opportunities find you rather than you having to chase them constantly. This isn't mystical. It's the natural result of becoming someone who adds value wherever you go, rather than seeking to extract value from every interaction. Third, and perhaps most importantly, you discover a sustainable source of fulfillment. Happiness based on what you receive is always temporary, always vulnerable to changing circumstances. But the satisfaction that comes from giving, from making a contribution, from knowing your presence in the world creates positive ripples, this is enduring. It remains accessible even during life's inevitable challenges. I've experienced this transformation personally. In my early days of teaching, I measured success by what I received: student enrollment, recognition, income. There was always anxiety, always comparison, always the question of whether I was getting enough back for my efforts. When I shifted to measuring success by what my students were absorbing, by the growth I witnessed in them, by the principles they carried into their own lives, everything changed. Even on difficult days when nothing seemed to go right, I could find satisfaction in small moments of connection, of transmission, of giving something that might bear fruit long after I was gone. This brings me to the ultimate expression of the principle: giving without attachment to outcome, giving without need for recognition, giving without even witnesses. The highest form of giving is when you plant trees whose shade you know you'll never sit under, when you introduce ideas that may only be fully understood a generation later, when you give not for what it produces, but because giving has become your nature, as natural as breathing. Before my final film was complete, I had a dream that stayed with me. In it, I was teaching a student who kept asking, "But when will I be powerful? When will I be respected? When will I receive the benefits of all this training?" In the dream, I led him to a garden where a farmer was planting seeds. "Ask him," I said. The farmer looked up, hands covered in soil, and said simply, "I plant because it is what I am here to do. The harvest is not my concern. It will come in its own time, perhaps even after I am gone. My joy is in the planting itself." I woke from that dream with perfect clarity about my purpose. I was not here merely to become famous, to accumulate wealth, to receive accolades. I was here to plant seeds. Ideas, methods, philosophies that might grow in ways I could never predict, might bear fruit I would never taste. This perspective freed me completely from the anxious monitoring of what I was receiving back. The giving itself became enough. And so I ask you now, what seeds could you plant today? What could you give without concern for what you'll receive in return? Where could you contribute simply for the joy of contribution? These questions, if you let them, will transform not just what you do, but who you are. They will shift you from being merely successful in the world's eyes to being significant in ways that transcend conventional measures. Listen carefully now. The world is full of takers, those who approach life asking what they can extract, what they can acquire, what they can claim as theirs. Takers may achieve temporary gains, may accumulate impressive possessions, may even rise to positions of influence. But their impact is always limited, their satisfaction always fleeting, their legacy always in question. Then there are the givers, those rare individuals who approach each day asking what they can contribute, what they can improve, what they can leave better than they found it. Givers may not always receive immediate recognition. They may not accumulate the most impressive possessions. They may not hold the most prestigious titles. But their impact expands across time and space. Their fulfillment runs deep and steady. Then their legacy continues long after they're gone. I made my choice years ago, standing in that dojo as rain streamed down the windows, realizing that my closed fist was not only limiting what I could receive, but what I could give. I opened my hand that night. Not just my physical hand, but the metaphorical one that had been clutching so tightly to knowledge, to recognition, to control. And in that opening, I discovered a power far greater than anything I could achieve through grasping. Now the choice stands before you. Will you continue the exhausting work of calculating what you deserve, protecting what you have, extracting what you can from each situation? Or will you step into the paradoxical truth that has transformed lives for thousands of years? That to receive more, you must first give more. Will you open your hand? Remember this, the cup must be emptied before it can be filled with something new. Your hands must be open to receive. The breath must be exhaled completely before the body can inhale fresh air. These aren't just poetic metaphors. They're practical truths about how energy flows, how growth happens, how fulfillment works. The more you give, the more you become capable of receiving. I've shared everything I can with you today. I've given you not just philosophy, but practical methods, not just inspiration, but a pathway to transformation. What you do with this teaching is up to you. We'll listen and nod, but continue as before. Others will experiment briefly, but retreat when immediate results don't appear. But a few, perhaps you, will recognize the profound truth in this principle and begin the journey of embodying it fully. If you choose this path, know that it gets easier with practice. Like any martial art, the movements that feel awkward at first eventually become second nature. The giving that initially triggers fear gradually becomes your natural response. The abundance